Hi, I want to talk about Aristotle and his idea of the acquisition of private property. If you recall, Plato frowned on the acquisition of private property. That's how come he argued that the philosopher king must touch neither gold nor silver. He must not have a property that he can call his own, but that whatever he uses as property must be something that belongs to the state. Even children, he must not have children he can call his own. He must not have his own wife. He can give birth with any woman he chooses, and his children will be put in a pool that would be who will be taken care of by the state. Now, Aristotle wields a contrary view to the idea to the Platonic conception of private property. For Aristotle, private property per se would not be a threat to the quest for moral perfection within the state. No, private property itself is not a threat to the quest for any moral perfection within the state, and so the acquisition of private property is good. His view is that it is only the excessive acquisition of private property and the creation of excessive inequality between the poor and the rich that sometimes can degenerate into problem. And so he argues or advocated that yes, private property is good and it must be acquired by all, and wealth must be evenly distributed. So Aristotle said that we shouldn't have a situation where only few people are too rich and the majority of the people are poor, like the situation is within many developing countries. In a country in countries that are stable, you have few people very rich, huge number of the people in the body politic being in the middle class, and only few people are very poor. So if you draw a diagram, you see few people very rich, majority of people they are in the middle class. They can afford basic the cost. They can pay for the cost of basic goods, and services, and then only a few people below the middle class are very poor. So Aristotle said that it is good, private property is good. What is however bad is that if private property or wealth is not evenly distributed, and so you have a few people who are so rich and the rest of the population are very poor. So, but he also justifies his private property and the idea that it is good on so many grounds. The first ground that he justifies the need for us to acquire private property is the fact that it is an incentive to hard work, and it brings progress or improves productivity within the state. If we are not going to acquire private property, why will people work hard? And so it is an incentive to work hard. People work hard because they'll be able to acquire something from it. And then as they work hard, productivity is also increased and improved, and there is development. Another justification is that private property brings pleasure, and it gives the owner pleasure and makes life worth living. It's because of the pleasure that we get that people would want to work hard to acquire private property. It makes life worth living. It gives pleasure. And so it's another justification. The third one is that no human being can perform the noble act of giving if he doesn't have. And so it is justified, he justified the need for us to acquire private property because it is its acquisition that will help us to be able to perform the noble act of giving to those who do not have. If you don't have, how do you give? And so he believes that giving to ensure even distribution of wealth is good. It contributes to pleasure. It also brings about stability. It also ensures that those who do not have would also get something. And so that act of giving is noble, but you cannot perform the noble act of generosity if you don't have. And then finally, he argues that there is a human instinct that urges him to acquire wealth. And since this is part of him naturally, it must not be stopped. Everybody has a certain instinct that naturally would urge you or push you to work hard to acquire property. And since that instinct is natural to us, we must always, people earn, people work hard, they earn, and they have the instinct to save or to acquire property that they would keep somewhere and expected that it will become beneficial to them in future. And so that natural instinct within us to work hard to acquire property is always there. And since this is natural, we must not stop it, in the view of Aristotle. So, like I said, unlike Plato, who felt that the acquisition or the quest to acquire private property will lead to corruption, it would usher leaders into the regime of corruption, and so he sought to distance the philosopher came from private property. Aristotle believes that no, private property per se would not be an obstruction, or it would not threaten our quest for moral perfection. Rather, it is its excessive acquisition and our inability to evenly distribute it that will serve as a threat to the state. And so he believes that private property and its acquisition is good. I'll continue to do another lecture on Aristotle next week. Thank you.